low gray sky pressed down on the Hong Kong harbor, muting the colors of the buildings and dulling the sound of traffic. Cargo ships sat motionless in the distance like sleeping beasts, and the air smelled of salt, oil, and damp concrete. Inside an abandoned industrial warehouse in Kwun Tong, there were no cameras, no reporters, no fans, only silence. Bruce Lee stood alone on the cold concrete floor, barefoot, eyes half closed, breathing slow and controlled. He was 31 years old, 5 feet 7 inches tall, just under 140 pounds, compact, efficient, every ounce of his body purposeful. He wore simple black training pants and a faded gray t-shirt. No logos, no shoes, no jewelry, his hair slightly damp from sweat. He had already been warming up for nearly 30 minutes, shadowboxing. But this was not the shadowboxing people expected. There were no exaggerated punches, no dramatic kicks, no wasted motion. His hands moved inches, not feet. His feet barely left the ground, and each movement flowed into the next like water finding the easiest path downhill. Anyone watching closely would notice something strange. Bruce wasn't fighting an imaginary opponent. He was reacting, responding, as if someone else was standing in front of him. Every few seconds he would stop, tilt his head slightly, adjust his stance by an inch, then continue. He looked dissatisfied. Bruce Lee was not known for doubt, not in his body, not in his technique, not in his philosophy. He was decisive, direct, ruthless with inefficiency. Yet this morning, something was different, because today Bruce Lee was not preparing to test his skill against another man. He was preparing to face himself. At least, that's how it felt. At exactly 06:51 a.m., the metal door at the far end of the warehouse creaked open. Bruce stopped instantly, not because of the sound, but because of the presence. Footsteps echoed across the concrete. Slow, measured, confident, not rushed, not hesitant. Bruce turned, and for the first time in his life, he froze. Standing 10 meters away was a man of the exact same height, the exact same build, the exact same posture. Black training pants, plain gray t-shirt, barefoot. Same haircut, same jawline, same eyes. Even the small scar near the left eyebrow identical. For a split second, Bruce's nervous system reacted before his mind could catch up. A surge of adrenaline, a tightening in the chest, a primal alert. This was wrong. This was not normal. The man across from him looked at Bruce with calm detachment, then slowly smiled. Not a friendly smile, not hostile either. It was analytical, curious, as if studying an experiment. "You're late," the man said. Same voice, same cadence, same accent. Bruce did not answer immediately. He scanned the man from head to toe, eyes moving with surgical precision, muscle density, stance width, shoulder alignment, breathing pattern. Everything matched perfectly. "Who are you?" Bruce finally asked. The man took one step forward. Bruce instinctively adjusted his weight distribution, a fraction of a second, subconscious. The man noticed and smiled wider. "I'm you," he said. "Just better." The words landed heavier than a punch. Bruce had been challenged before by boxers, by karate champions, by street fighters, by professional athletes, by skeptics who wanted to test the myth. None of that bothered him. But this was different. "You shouldn't exist," Bruce said calmly. The man shrugged. "And yet, here I am." Silence filled the warehouse again. Dust floated through a shaft of morning light cutting through a broken window. Somewhere outside, a truck horn blared. Life continued, completely unaware of what was about to happen in this forgotten building. Bruce slowly lowered his hands, not into a guard, but into neutrality. "You said you're better than me," Bruce said. "Explain." The man circled slightly to the left. Bruce mirrored him without thinking. Perfect synchronization. "I studied everything you discarded," the man replied. "Every movement you rejected, every principle you abandoned, every limitation you refused to accept." Bruce's eyes narrowed. "I discard what doesn't work." "That's where you're wrong," the man said softly. "You discard what you couldn't master." That struck something deeper. Bruce Lee had built his entire philosophy on ruthless self-honesty, on stripping away illusion, on eliminating ego. But hearing those words from a mouth that moved exactly like his own was unsettling. "Why are you here?" Bruce asked. The man stopped moving and looked directly into Bruce's eyes. "To answer the one question you never stopped asking yourself." He stepped closer now, 5 meters, 4. "You always wondered what would happen if you faced someone with your speed, your timing, your intelligence, but without your mercy." Bruce's breathing slowed. "I have no mercy in combat." The man shook his head. "You do." Then he leaned forward slightly and said the sentence that would echo in Bruce's mind for the rest of his life. "You still believe you can be improved." A long pause followed. Bruce felt it then, not fear, not anger, but doubt, not about his ability but about the limits of it. "You didn't come here to fight," Bruce said. "Oh, I did," the man replied, "but not the way you think." He raised his hands, same stance, same angle, same readiness. "But understand this," he added, "if you lose today, you don't just lose a fight." Bruce took a single step forward, the concrete cracking slightly beneath his foot. "What do I lose?" Bruce asked. The man smiled again. "You lose the right to believe you're the final version of yourself." Silence followed. Then, without warning, the man moved, not fast, not slow, perfectly timed. Bruce reacted instantly, and in that first exchange, that first micro-movement, Bruce Lee realized something terrifying. For the first time in his life, someone knew exactly what he was going to do before he did it. The first exchange lasted less than half a second. To an untrained eye, it would have looked like nothing happened. Just a shift of weight, a twitch of the shoulder, a step that never fully landed. But inside Bruce Lee's nervous system, alarms were screaming because the counter came before the attack. Bruce initiated a probing lead hand, not a strike, just pressure, a question, the kind of movement designed to read reactions. The man answered with an interception that didn't just neutralize the motion, it anticipated it. Bruce felt the air displaced inches from his knuckles as the man's forearm slid perfectly into the line Bruce was about to occupy. There was no wasted movement, no excess force, economy at its most brutal. Bruce pulled back instantly. His heart rate increased slightly, not from exertion but from cognitive overload. This wasn't reflex. This wasn't luck. This was prediction. They separated again, circling slowly. Bruce's mind raced, but his face remained calm. This was not a sparring partner. This was a mirror that moved first. "You're reacting too early," Bruce said, watching carefully. The man tilted his head. "No," he replied. "I'm reacting to the version of you that exists before you move." Bruce shifted angles, feinted low, then exploded forward with a rapid straight blast. A classic Jeet Kune Do entry, 5 strikes in under a second. The man stepped inside the rhythm, not back, inside. He shut down the sequence by collapsing Bruce's structure at the shoulder line, redirecting momentum with minimal force and forcing Bruce to pivot to avoid losing balance. Bruce disengaged, breathing slightly heavier now. Interesting. The man had not overpowered him. He had edited him. "You simplified combat," the man said calmly. "Stripped it down, made it efficient." Bruce nodded slightly. "That's the point." "And in doing so," the man continued, "you became predictable." Bruce's eyes hardened. "Efficiency doesn't equal predictability." The man smiled. "It does. When efficiency becomes your identity." That landed harder than any strike so far. Bruce had spent years removing excess, removing tradition, removing ego, removing anything that didn't serve function. But had he removed variability? Bruce attacked again, this time irregular, broken rhythm, delayed timing, an unorthodox angle. The man adjusted instantly, still no panic, still no strain. Bruce felt something unfamiliar creeping in, not fatigue but mental resistance. Every option he considered, the man already occupied the counter space. It was like playing chess against someone who had memorized every game Bruce had ever played, including the ones Bruce had never lost. They paused again. Sweat dripped from Bruce's chin, hitting the concrete with soft taps. "You're not better than me," Bruce said quietly. "You're just rehearsed." The man nodded. "Yes." Then added, "And you never rehearsed your own collapse." That's when Bruce understood. This wasn't about technique. It was about philosophy. Bruce had built his entire system around adaptation, but adaptation assumed an unknown opponent. What happens when the opponent is known perfectly? Bruce shifted his stance deliberately into something uncomfortable, something inefficient. His guard loosened, his posture less compact. The man raised an eyebrow. "Interesting," he said. Bruce lunged, sloppy by design. The man moved to exploit it, and for the first time he hesitated. A fraction of a second, because this version of Bruce violated every principle the man had optimized against. Bruce felt it instantly. There. A crack. Bruce pressed forward, embracing imbalance, letting movements be ugly, letting form break. The exchange became chaotic, less clean, less beautiful, but harder to read. The man absorbed a glancing strike to the ribs, nothing serious but enough to register. He stepped back and looked at Bruce differently now. "You're willing to become worse," the man observed. Bruce wiped sweat from his brow. "I'm willing to become unknown." Silence again. The man slowly nodded. "That's why you were dangerous." Bruce tensed. "Were?" "What do you mean?" Bruce asked. The man lowered his hands slightly. "You've reached the peak of refinement," he said. "But refinement has diminishing returns." Bruce's jaw tightened. "Growth doesn't stop." "No," the man agreed, "but it changes direction." He stepped closer, voice dropping. "You're about to face something you can't train for." Bruce held his ground. "What?" The man looked him dead in the eyes. "Decay." The word hung in the air. "You feel it already," the man continued. "The injuries, the fatigue, the moments where recovery takes longer than it should." Bruce said nothing, because it was true. The headaches, the nerve pain, the lingering exhaustion. Bruce had told no one. "How do you know that?" Bruce asked. The man smiled, but this time there was no warmth in it. "Because I am the version of you that accepted it." A chill ran through Bruce's spine. "You're not my future," Bruce said firmly. "No," the man replied. "I'm the version you refused to become." They stood in silence again. Two identical men, two diverging paths. "One of us evolves," the man said. "The other preserves the illusion of control." Bruce slowly raised his hands again. "This fight isn't over." The man matched him. "No," he agreed. "Now it actually begins." Outside, the sky darkened unexpectedly. Clouds rolled in, swallowing the morning light, and thunder rumbled faintly in the distance. Inside the warehouse, the air felt heavier. Bruce inhaled deeply. For the first time that day, he wasn't fighting an opponent. He was fighting a decision, and he had no idea which version of himself would walk out alive. The rain began without warning. Heavy drops slammed against the broken windows, echoing through the warehouse like distant gunfire. The concrete floor darkened in patches as water seeped inside, blurring reflections. Two identical figures stood facing each other. Same body, same breath, same potential, but only one could remain. The man moved first this time, not aggressively but decisively. He closed distance with absolute confidence, forcing Bruce into reactive space. His timing was flawless, his entries sharp, his pressure relentless. This was not about domination. This was about inevitability. Bruce responded instinctively, but something was off. Not physically but mentally. For the first time, Bruce realized the man wasn't trying to defeat him. He was trying to replace him. Each exchange felt like an argument, a philosophical debate conducted through flesh and bone. The man attacked with certainty, movements optimized, refined, cold. Every strike was a statement. This is what efficiency becomes when belief replaces curiosity. Bruce absorbed, redirected, disengaged. He let go of trying to win, and that's when something shifted. Bruce stopped thinking in techniques, stopped thinking in counters, stopped thinking in outcomes. He let himself dissolve into motion, not faster, not stronger, just looser. His movements became less precise and more alive. The man hesitated again, just enough. Bruce stepped into that hesitation, not with force, but with presence. A sudden angle change, a disrupted rhythm, a moment that didn't belong to any system. Bruce's palm stopped inches from the man's chest, not striking, not committing, a question. The man froze. The rain hammered louder now, masking their breathing. "You could have hit me," the man said quietly. Bruce lowered his hand. "Yes," he replied. "But then I would have proven you right." The man frowned. "About what?" "That this is about superiority," Bruce said. "It's not." They stood still, no guards, no tension, just two versions of the same soul, separated by belief. "You think walking away makes you wiser," the man said. "It makes you incomplete." Bruce shook his head. "No," he said softly. "It makes me free." The man stared at him. "You're afraid," he accused. Bruce met his gaze. "I am," he admitted. "Afraid of becoming something rigid, something finished." Thunder cracked outside. Bruce continued. "You accepted limits and optimized inside them. I refuse limits and stay adaptable." The man's voice dropped. "And when your body fails you?" Bruce smiled faintly. "Then I adapt again." Silence followed. For the first time, the man looked uncertain, not weak but unsettled. "You can't outrun time," the man said. Bruce nodded. I don't need to, he replied. I just need to move with it. The rain began to slow. The man took a step back, then another. His outline seemed less solid now, not physically fading, but losing authority, losing inevitability. This is why you never found peace, the man said. You never let yourself conclude. Bruce breathed deeply. Because conclusion is death, he replied. Process is life. The man looked at him for a long moment, then he smiled, not analytically, not coldly, but genuinely. You'll pay for this choice, he said. Bruce nodded. I know. The man turned and walked toward the shadows at the far end of the warehouse. His footsteps grew quieter, blending with the sound of rain. Before disappearing completely, he stopped. Without turning around, he said, When they find the footage, they won't understand. Bruce replied calmly, They don't need to. The man vanished into the darkness. Bruce stood alone again, breathing steady, mind clear. Outside, the rain stopped entirely. A beam of sunlight broke through the clouds, cutting across the warehouse floor and landing exactly where Bruce stood. He closed his eyes, not victorious, not defeated, changed. Years later, people would talk about Bruce Lee's philosophy. They would analyze his speed, his power, his intellect. But no one would ever speak about the morning he faced the one opponent he could never defeat by force, himself. Because that footage was never released, and the truth it contained was too dangerous, not because it showed Bruce Lee losing, but because it showed him choosing something far more difficult, walking away.